Suman and I, Mukhul Sharma, came to Austin in August of 1985. That's when we got married. It was June of 1985. I had moved from Los Angeles, and she moved from India at the time. And I joined the university on the faculty here, and have been here ever since.
So what have you been doing, Suman?
I think it was a beautiful move. My father was not sure, like, you're going so far away and we know so little of the boy. I think we met for an hour and 14 days later we were married, and that's what I tell my kids now. It's like, what are you looking for? Just decide. But anyway, so yeah, we got married June 29th, and then he actually came in August, and I joined him in November. I had to wait for my visa. And so I joined him close to Thanksgiving, and I've been here ever since. And we love Austin. The weather is like New Delhi, where I was born, brought up, and there was not much acclimatization. You could feel the nip in the air, the winter coming, the spring coming, and it was just beautiful. I liked Austin, every bit of it. And of course, now I've been here longer than I was in Delhi, and so both places are still home to me. I know Delhi inside out, I know Austin inside out, and loved every bit of it.
So I came to the US in 1980. I went to school there at the University of Southern California, getting my PhD in chemical engineering. I almost didn't come to the US because I had 4 scholarship offers when I had finished my degree from IIT Kanpur, and I turned them down and started to work for a company called Hindustan Lever in Mumbai. And after 2 months of working, I decided that graduate school might be a better choice for me. So I called them up and I called up USC and said, the scholarship offer that you offered me, is that still valid? And they said, sure, come on over. And there was a professor there named Yanis Yortsos, who turned out to be my PhD advisor, who said, sure, we still have the offer for you. So I came to USC and really enjoyed graduate school, really enjoyed the research. Worked for Chevron for a summer. And then during the Olympics in '84, I remember my mom and my sister coming to visit and so forth. But it was a good 5 years in Los Angeles. And then in '85, I moved to Austin.
What did you research in?
My research was mainly related to oil and gas exploration and production, but specifically related to how you can improve the productivity of oil and gas wells.
Okay. And was it taken up by the oil and gas industry and implemented there?
Yeah, so when I finished my PhD, I had offers from Chevron, who I'd worked for before, for a full-time offer, and then Mobil in Dallas, and a couple of universities here in the US, University in Canada, and so forth. And UT Austin was the best university in my field at the time. And when they made me an offer, I decided that this was the place for me.
Well, also because Calgary was too cold.
Yeah, Calgary was very cold. But places like California, where Chevron was a beautiful place, but I preferred to be in academia rather than being in industry. So it was a wonderful choice for me. It was really the right choice for me.
So when you were in California, you did mainly the research and got your PhD.
Correct.
And then moved into academia immediately without actually doing any company work as such.
Correct. I worked for Chevron for a short time in California, and then I moved here.
Okay.
Right.
So please tell me about your academia.
Yeah. So in '85, another very important thing happened, which is we got married in '85. So I went, after I finished my PhD in May, June, July, and half of August I spent in India, and I met Suman, and we got married in June, and then I came here in August, and then she came here in October after her visa was done. Yeah.
Good times.
Yeah.
I remember when we met very briefly. We met for like an hour or two, and we said, "Yeah, we are ready to get married." My father, first he was very excited that it was a yes, and then he kind of withdrew and said, "Are you sure? We don't know the boy. We know his parents, but what does that mean? He's been out for 5 years." And I said, "I don't know. I mean, you asked me to meet him, and I met him, and it's all right." So anyway, 14 days later, we were married, June 29th. And then it was nice, very nice. It was a great experience coming to Austin. It was a small city at the time, so a lot of love and affection. Everybody was just way beyond my expectation, polite, nice, so much to learn. And I remember going to UT, and I said, I'm a spouse of one of the faculty members, and because it was October already, midway through semester, but I paint as a hobby. Can I join the class? And he said, sure, it'll be so fun to have intercultural influences in the class and new experiences. So please come on in, and you just bring your canvas, and we'll provide everything else. I'm like, wow, that's I've never heard of that, and it worked out beautiful ever since. So I think.
Well, what did you do in India before coming to
Actually, I was like those usual, pediatrician, those doctors wannabe. And as normal, I went to BSc, and after my pre-med, year I took my exam. I missed it by 6 points, and I got it in Pune, but my grandfather, I came from a very traditional family, and he said, women are not going to go out of Delhi and away from home to study. So if it's only Lady Harding, I was like, it wasn't Lady Harding, And so, okay, no medical school for you. So I finished my BSc at Hindu College, which was another very nice experience. But then after that, I told my father, I said, I don't want to do masters. I enjoy painting. I was like, okay, that's fine, whatever. So I went ahead and joined the art college and did another bachelor's. And it was good. I enjoyed it.
What art did you specialize in? Any specific art?
I wish I had gone for painting as I wanted to, but when I took that entrance exam, I was among the top. And at that time, advertising was the infield, and that was, the field that'll get you most jobs and most opportunities. And my father talked very proudly to all his friends, and they all said, of course, advertising, that's what she should do. And so, lo and behold, I did advertising, and actually my heart was in painting. I still wish I could go back and do painting again, but anyway, so I did my 4 years in advertising, and it was good. We learned all the basics, just not so much of color mixing and stuff, a lot of basics, so it was good.
This was in UT.
So she had a degray in
Hindu College,
in
zoology.
in zoology, where she topped the university.
Oh, well, yes, I proudly did. That's why I said, no medical college for me, and yet I topped zoology honors in Delhi University, which is a big deal at the time.
Awesome.
Yeah, she topped Delhi University, and then she moved over from science into arts.
Yes, very equally comfortable.
Good.
I've never looked back.
And can you tell a little bit about your experience in Austin? And also I want to know how you guys found yourself as Asians. Did you find the difference? Were you the only Asians? And what were your particular experience as an Asian and as a,
So when we came to Austin in '85, the Indian American community was actually quite small.
How small?
Small enough where all of the families that were here were listed in one little booklet. Their names and addresses were listed in what was called the Indian American Directory.
ICC, yeah,
Indian Community Center Directory.
Right.
And it was about 35 pages.
I think about like 200 families listed.
Probably about 200 families, I'm guessing.
This is besides the students who were at UT or something.
Yeah.
But mostly registered
the
families.
people who were registered with ICC. So there were about 200 families, and just about everybody who was Indian American knew everybody else.
Oh yes, there were Diwali and Holi and you could not go to the mall and see an Indian who you didn't know. I mean,
Yeah, so you would basically get to know and meet just about every Indian American in the community. And of course, we had a lot of friends, professionally and otherwise, who were Caucasians and other ethnicities. But the Indian American community was very close because it was such a small community.
And how were you perceived within the community? Were you able to join in the community activities, not Indian community, but general Austin?
I think the community in Austin received people from outside with open arms. It was a very open community. It was very, very accepting of different cultures. We never felt that we were out of place in Austin.
We
even
felt
for a
so
minute.
loved. I think when I arrived, within 10 days, their head of the department, her secretary, not his secretary at the time, but the head of the department secretary had arranged a reception for us at Dr. Lake's house, right? Who was the head at the time? And
Dr. Pope, actually.
oh, but it was the reception was at Larry Lake's house. And it was just so wonderful. I felt like I belonged. I was so new. I was still conscious of my accent. I wasn't sure, can I talk softly, loudly? You know, I was a little conscious of my presence here, but they just made me feel so at home. And I remember I was just learning to drive my car, and Mukhul said, "You have 10 days, and that's all I have to, so you have to start driving." And I took to it like fish takes to water. I love driving. I love my independence. And so I said, so Dr. Pope was telling me, okay, only one rule. When you enter the freeway, don't slow down. You've got to speed up and let others take care of it. And I just took to it, and I just, I think I learned driving in 10 days, and everybody was very supportive. I mean, I have enjoyed every bit.
I mean, the Austin community was wonderful to us.
Wonderful.
Absolutely wonderful.
And how did you find the students' reactions to Asian teachers? Did they have the respect, or how is it?
So the students at UT are just absolutely wonderful. We had about 30 different countries represented in our graduate program. The undergraduates were and still are about 90% of them from Texas. So I had no trouble whatsoever with the students from Texas or the students from around the world. They're all very bright young people, and I really enjoyed teaching and working with them. I saw no sense that I was an outsider or anything like that. I just felt completely at home. But Suman grew up.
I was brought up in the same house in Delhi.
I see.
Yeah, he was traveling all over, but Lucknow.
Yeah, my childhood and all was. My dad was in the IAS, and so he got transferred every 3 years or so, every 2-3 years. So I lived in Hyderabad, Moradabad, Delhi, Lucknow, Kanpur. I finished my high school in Lucknow, but we were moving around all the time.
What was your favorite breakfast when you grew up?
Yeah, I'm sure it's still idli.
My favorite breakfast is still dosa and idli in South India.
How did you get introduced to all that?
I'm sorry, how did I what?
How did you get introduced to dosa and idli?
I don't remember. I must have been a little kid, and we had lots of friends who
I
were.
think he grew up in Hyderabad for the first 5 years.
That's true. I did grow up in Hyderabad. Yeah.
What about you?
Oh, I am a Punjabi from Delhi, and so paratha was our main breakfast. But I eat anything. I mean, I cook South Indian for him. He loves it. I know he does. So on his birthday gift is always cooking him dosas, idlis, and. But I was brought up in Delhi. My parents moved there after partition. So Delhi was, especially South Delhi was mostly immigrants who had moved from Pakistan to Delhi, and they were, most of them settled there. I was brought up there.
So your family had an immigrant experience also before you came here as an immigrant?
Yes. Well, so when my parents moved, I think what I got from it was, even though for them it was home, it was still moving from one place to another place in the same country. But what I learned from my father was don't get attached to anything, just enjoy and do. And he was so successful. He was 16 years old when he moved from Pakistan when Pakistan part of India to New Delhi. And he was so successful that he says, you just have to have a positive outlook to life, and everything else will fall in place. And somehow I think all of us inherited that little bit. And so when I came here, of course it was easy. It was an easy transition. People were just way too nice. I couldn't even believe they were so nice, and that somebody could be so nice. And I really enjoyed it. So it all translated very well. Yes, please.
So Suman's father actually was a pioneer in the electronics business in India. He built the first televisions, the first telecommunications equipment, and antennas and radios and things like that, and had a big presence in the electronics business and manufacturing in the early part of the industry.
Yeah, I know. I mean, our generation, if you remember Televista Television, my father started it, and he did very well. I mean, he knew how to go out of the world, beyond his comfort zone, go meet people. So he went to Germany, Japan, even in those days when people won't travel so much, took every opportunity to learn something new and bring it to India and develop it there. And he was just very curious, and I think a lot of us picked up it from him. I mean, a lot to learn from him. But
sounds like he was a good teacher. Do you remember other teachers in your early life or later life that left an impact?
I fondly remember my history teacher. She was also, Mrs. Call, and she's still alive. So there's not a trip to India when I don't go back and visit her, because if I go without visiting her, she'll be upset. And so we have fond memories, and I've known her since I was in 5th grade. And so happened that after I got married, her husband was also very close to Mukkul's dad, and so that was another connection. So now whenever I visit her, she actually calls Papa, and then Papa tells me, and then Mukhul and we all go visit her briefly. And so very elegant lady, so learned a lot from her, just sheer presence, just elegance.
She was, in fact, we met her this time 2 months ago when we were in India.
Yeah. And she is 87 now, but she came down the steps without holding on to the rails. She's keeping herself alert and active.
It's a funny story, but when we first moved to Austin, her husband was the Indian ambassador in Washington, D.C. So they came to visit. And when the Indian ambassador comes to visit, they have a big entourage of people. So they came to visit us in our first home, and we didn't have any furniture. And we had just moved into the house. There was no chairs, there was no sofas, nothing. And so the first thing that happened was the Secret Service guys entered the house, about 6 of them, and did a complete reconnaissance of the house to make sure that there was nobody else there. And they said, okay. I said, okay, now you can leave. He said, no, we're going to stay. And then the Indian ambassador walks in. And of course we sat on these little chairs that we had.
We had no seats at the time, and we were those young, ideal couple, just moved into a new house, just had a futon and no place to sit. And these older people couldn't sit down.
There was no place for them to sit except for Mr. and Mrs. Paul, and the 2 of us were sitting, and that was it.
It was funny though, but it was such a wonderful experience. So next day I drove her on 360, and the funny thing is, our house was in Wells Branch at the time, and we used to live on Riverside in our apartment, and then from there we moved to Wells Branch, and it was all the I-35 corridor, which is so flat. We didn't even know that there is this side of Austin, which is hill country and so beautiful. So I actually, when I took Mrs. Call to drive around, I said, wow, this part of Austin is really pretty. So I showed her the Pennybacker Bridge and drove around 360. And I think it was, I don't remember, was it springtime? There were a lot of bluebonnets.
I don't remember now.
But it was a great time that she visited. So a lot of very good teachers. I mean,
this was in 86.
Yeah, even through college, through school, through art college, everywhere.
What about your teachers, Nicole?
My teachers, I had some really, really good teachers in IIT, and I remember them very well. There was a fellow who used to teach us chemistry, who was outstanding, Bala Subramaniam. There was a fellow who used to teach us unit operations, who was very good, K.S. Gandhi. There was a fellow who used to, the nice thing about IIT Kanpur was we had 10 semesters, right, 5 years, and every semester we had one humanities course. And I really enjoyed the humanities, so our philosophy teacher was fantastic. I mean, just absolutely fantastic. So I had some really good teachers in IIT, and that made a big. Now, I wasn't a very studious person, so I probably didn't take full advantage of it.
So you had a lot of extracurriculars?
I had a lot of extracurricular, maybe too many extracurricular activities.
What did you enjoy?
He was a state champion for badminton at the time.
Yeah, no, I was involved in quite a few extracurricular activities. IIT Kanpur had a lot of opportunities for extracurricular activities. I was involved in playing badminton and involved in, there was a television studio there, and we used to produce television shows, for the campus. There was all kinds of activities going on. And so I was definitely maybe a little bit too much of social activities.
Yeah, I remember when I first got married, one of his very dear friends took us to IIT Kanpur. He says, "Did Mukul show you that hostel where he played badminton and then he had all this other group people having fun together?" It's like, no. He says, "Well, I didn't expect he will, but I'll tell you that." He was totally preoccupied with badminton, and I knew always that he was a state champion for Lucknow at the time.
Yeah.
So
I was very much into that sort of thing, and study was fine too. We used to study as well, but.
And I always told him, don't tell that to your children, because they feel like, oh, you did well, then what's the big deal? So just always say you worked hard.
So when I began my career at the University of Texas, I was 25 years old. I was the youngest faculty member by far in the department, and I had no idea what I was doing. So all I could do was work hard, which I did. I think someone will attest to the fact that I really spent a good bit of time working on my research, which I enjoyed thoroughly. I really enjoyed my research. And went through the process of getting tenure and all that thing, just like any other faculty member would. I think what I enjoyed the most in my early years was working on problems that really had an impact on the way industry did their business. And so over the course of time, a lot of the technologies that I developed were adopted by the industry. And I got the opportunity to work on various things that allowed me to start new companies and build businesses and so forth, which really was something that I enjoyed. As an engineer, I felt like working on basic science was important, but ultimately, if somebody used what I was developing and it had some impact on the industry, that really was my ultimate goal. And I've kept that up over the last 30
And I think
years.
that should be a goal for an engineer anyway.
Yeah.
It's not pure science, it's
I think
trying
so.
to apply it to the
I certainly think so.
practical
And
aspect.
I think the highlight of my career has been working with all the graduate students. I've had over 60 PhD students and over 100 master's students who've done theses under my supervision, and I'm really proud that they've all done extremely well all around the world. And
Well, that is true though. I said such good students, and they've all done very well in their lives. We see them now and we know how successful they are. But the main thing is, I have never traveled anywhere in the world, even the remotest of places, where someone has not come and touched on his shoulder and said, "Dr. Sharma, what are you doing here?" And sometimes they recognize me. I don't recognize them sometimes because, it's been so many students over so many years. But twice a year, we invite all the students home, especially the PhD students with their wives and children. And so we've seen their families grow with time, and it's been a great experience. Good stuff.
that really is the most rewarding thing, is the graduate students, but also the undergraduate students. I mean, it's just wonderful to see them. Some of them have been incredibly successful. Incredibly successful. So some of the most successful private entrepreneurs in the oil and gas industry have come from our department, and they've done very, very well. So,
What are you most proud of?
in my view, my biggest contribution is my students. That's what I'm that's what I feel the most proud about, is all the people have done so well after graduating from UT.
What accolades have you received for that?
So, when you do a lot of good research, you get recognized for it. And over the years, there are various awards that my profession gives. So for younger faculty members, there's something called the Cedric Ferguson Medal, which is for people that are less than 45 years of age. And when I was young, I got that. And then later on, the Society of Petroleum Engineers is our main society, and it has 130,000, 140,000 members around the world. So they have 2 or 3 big technical awards, and over the last 15 years, we've...
The one in New Orleans, right, which said, after this you can't get a higher award.
Right.
What was that?
So the Lucas Gold Medal.
Yeah, Lucas Gold. I remember that. It was like
one
funny.
of that I got about 8-9 years ago, and then so these are all awards for technical excellence that the society gives, and it's obviously one recipient in the world in a given year. That was something that came as a result of all the research and all the development that I was doing as part of my job here. So those, of course, I'm very proud of as well. Then the latest one that happened this year was, for engineers, the highest award that an engineer can get in any branch of engineering is being elected to the National Academy of Engineering. And so this year, they elected me to the National Academy. I did not know about it until I got the final letter in the mail that basically said this. And there's relatively few people that are elected to the National Academy, and that was a really big honor for me to be elected to the National Academy. And I think it's important to sort of cap your career with something like that. It's the highest recognition an engineer can get, and so I was very pleased that my colleagues and people that I have a very high regard for thought that I was capable enough to be elected into the National Academy. So the induction ceremony is actually held in Washington, D.C.
And the whole family is going.
And the whole family is going.
September 28th.
And the induction ceremony is held on Constitution Avenue. There's a National Academy of Science building there where all these ceremonies are held. UT is actually very nice. They lit the tower orange in our honor, and
which is only special for football games, but we did it.
Yeah, so they do recognize academic excellence besides the football,
right?
Winning national championships.
Yeah.
So do you have photos with that?
I'm sure we do.
We do have some, yeah.
There was a lot of,
and then the president of the university had a reception in his
tower
in our honor at the tower and so on. So UT was very supportive and very recognized.
Of course, I mean, they were saying that universities actually pay special salaries to invite people who are inducted in this Hall of Fame, so to say, and UT is really honored to have so many good faculty who are honored by their peers straight, without having to invite them to join them later. It's all the hard work through UT, and it's been wonderful.
That is the ultimate recognition, is recognition by your peers.
So I know it's rewarding, because I know teaching is his passion. He's tried everything, and he's been more successful at everything besides just teaching, but everything takes him back to teaching. He just loves his students, and that's his passion. And he said, like, I remember him telling me, and in fact, one of his friends from IT saying, "Oh, I never thought Mukhul will be a professor." But it's amazing how it worked for him. That's why I think life takes its own course.
Yeah.
I know you give back a lot to your alma mater and home country. Can you tell about what you do there?
Yeah. So, from 2001 to 2005, I served as department chair at the university. And as a part of that, I was exposed to how to organize departments, how to organize the different things in academic programs. So once I stepped down as department chair after my term was over, I decided I really wanted to help set up some programs in India. At that time, I had the opportunity to actually meet several key people in India, including the President of India and some of the other key people there. And what I expressed to them was the fact that there was relatively few institutes that teach oil and gas related topics, except for the Dhanbad School of Mines, and none of the IITs have anything to do with oil and gas. None of the bigger institutes have anything to do with oil and gas. And there's so many institutes related to information technology, IT related things. And the amount of money that the country spends on oil and gas far exceeds what you spend on IT, or what the revenue is coming from IT, by a lot. So I said, why isn't there something that educates students in this? So I ended up serving on the board of 3 different institutes that were set up in India as a result of efforts made at the highest levels, where there was an institute set up which was actually Rajiv Gandhi's name was on it. There was an institute set up in Ahmedabad as well. There was an institute set up in the eastern part of India, and I was involved in helping them.
I remember you visited Abdul Kalam.
So the Deen Dayal Upadhyaya Institute in Ahmedabad was one of them. The Rajiv Gandhi Institute in Rai Bareli was another one of them. And I don't remember the name of the institute in the eastern part of India. So I tried to help them with the curriculum, with the facilities, with hiring people. One of my PhD students went back and started teaching in one of these places. He quit his job at Chevron actually and went back and started teaching there. And I also taught courses for about 15 years for ONGC and some of the industry things in India, in Dehradun and other places, in Ahmedabad. So I tried to help out with as much as I could. And now there are programs being set up in IIT Kanpur, there are programs being set up in IIT Kharagpur, in IIT Madras that are oil and gas related. And I think these all started in the last 10 years or so. So I think it's very important to be able to at least interact with your colleagues in India and ensure that they recognize the importance of teaching certain skill sets which are missing in our country, I think. And so I feel that it's very important to be a part of that sort of giving back.
What about the rest of the world? What do you do there?
So I've taught courses to industry in, I would say, about 30 countries or 40 countries around the world. I used to go to Europe every summer. In fact, someone used to come with me. I used to teach a 1-week course in Vienna. I used to teach a 1-week course in London. Then I would go to Kuala Lumpur and teach a course there. And so every summer was spent, going around the world and teaching courses to industry. These are not at universities. These are all for industry people.
And I got to travel.
Yeah, so everywhere from Colombia to Argentina to Brazil to China to all over the world. I haven't done that in the last 10 years, primarily because I don't feel inclined to do it anymore. But in the first 25 years of my career, I did a lot of that.
What have been your most favorite vacations?
Innumerable vacations.
We take about 5 vacations a year.
And the fun part about the vacation is we went to Hawaii last March, and we went to this mountain our friends had recommended, Kalilua, whatever the mountain was. Anyway, Halekela. It's supposedly the best sunrise in the world. And so we went there, it was 2 o'clock, they took us up, they got us into some kind of suits which will keep us warm, and they trained us how the air would be a little rare out there and it would be cold, so they gave us extra pair of gloves and they took us up. Any amount of clothes could not keep us warm. it was so cold, and we waited and we waited. It was nice. It was very nice. But I've seen better sunrises here. I told Mukul, this is pretty, but I prefer the sunrise with a cup of tea in my backyard. And so, well, let's go see what we have out there. It's pretty. Austin. I loved every minute of Austin. Here, just between that little dip of the hills, we have a beautiful sunrise. So 5 minutes in the morning, whether it's hot or cold, I have to sit out and enjoy my cup of tea. And my little doggy, if I say, let's go have tea, he just runs out and he follows me around and loves his cup of tea. But it's such a, it's a beautiful moving scenery. There are boats all day or something. And then migratory birds in the winter, we see herds of them, like in groups of white birds will come and stop here, go further, then in March they come back, go back. It's just fun to watch, just because of the river.
We fell in love with the view and the scenery here. It was just absolutely gorgeous. And it's very relaxing and soothing to watch water somehow.
So, it was a nice, modest house, and we kind of changed it a little for our needs.
Yeah.
And when I think of a holiday, I'll tell Mukul we should go out for a change, and he'll say,
Here's my line for Suman, right? So Suman wants to buy a vacation home. And so I said, buy the house across the street and live there, and then you can come here for vacation.
Really, the house across the street was on sale, and he said, why don't you just get that if this is getting to you?
Suman, I know you're an artist yourself. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
This side, and by 11:30, it's gone above the roof to the other side, and so you can sit in the back deck all day. It's just beautiful. Anytime after 2, you can use the back side of the house, and that's what I enjoy the most. All these homes were very modest across the river, but lately people have bought up the homes and demolished them down to the floor and started again, and beautiful homes are coming up. So I'm happy. I mean, change is always good for me. I enjoy it, even though it whatever it brings with it, but it's good. And so all the statues in the yard, most of them I've painted to look pretty. A lot of them were left behind by the lady who sold the house to us at the time. And so I show or satisfy my artistic interest in many ways.
By the way, none of this was here when we bought the house.
Yes.
So Suman is responsible for everything that you see here. The deck, the landscaping, the room down, everything. I mean,
well, that is true. The backyard was like this creek on the side.
It was like this. It was completely wild.
So we took care of some stuff before we moved in, because we knew we had to take care of it before, so we could get the bobcat in. So I just quickly drew up the lines in my mind and had that guy take care of it. And I was lucky to have the guy who understood what I was saying.
Well, I mean, you gave him the plans and the design. So all of this deck, all of the landscaping in the back, everything was done.
Yes, I tried to leave as much wild as possible, but still tamed a little bit, and we are enjoying it. I enjoy my backyard a lot, especially because I get to sit out a lot.
And what we don't use very much, our kids use a lot, which is the boat, which is down where that house is.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we wait for them to come to take it out.
So when Dhruv comes this weekend, he's probably going to take it out.
Yeah.
Can you talk about the boat again, please?
Oh, I said we don't tend to use it very often, but our kids really are, especially Dhruv, loves to use the boat, which is down there where the house is. You can see the roof of the house down there.
Yeah, the boat docks are down there on the lake.
So he's very fond of it, and we took it out 2 weekends ago or something.
But when he comes, we take out as much as we can, because you can go to Hula Hut on the boat, so you just go there, have dinner, and come back.
Yeah.
And then sometimes we go on this side.
There's a burger
all the way
place
to
up there.
Mansfield Dam. Not that we've ever done it, but
yeah, there's a nice burger place there too. That you can stop and park your boat and eat dinner.
Do you have a studio here as well?
yes, my studio